everyone. It's so nice to be here. It's my first time in Romania, and I had a chance to walk around yesterday. It's really, really beautiful. So as mentioned, my name is Anna Migas. I come from Krakow, Poland, and I work as lead UI developer at Field Intelligence, where we take care of optimizing supply chain for pharmaceuticals in emerging markets, and currently we operate in Nigeria and Kenya. I also hold the title of Google Developer Expert in web technologies area. Specialization is web performance. And I've been passionate about web performance for many years now and trying to tinker with it. And this is what today's talk is going to be about. All right, my clicker is not working. I'm just going to stand here. If you want to, you can also follow me on Twitter and tweet at me and ask me questions. And I'm going to post the slides after the talk there as well. And the official title of today's talk is Demystifying Web Performance Tooling. And to get to the talking points, first we'll talk about what is web performance to get us all on the same page, so we all have the baselines. We'll talk about the differences between the load, runtime, and perceived performance. Then we'll go to the tooling with a short demo. We'll see how short. And then we'll have a short summary. So what is web performance? The definition from Wikipedia says that web performance refers to the speed in which web pages are downloaded and displayed on the user's web browser. And this is quite simplistic definition, I must say, and only touches one part of one type of web performance. So let's go to the web performance type so we can understand the differences and see how this definition might be a bit too simple. So first of three types is the load web performance, and this is about everything that happens from the moment when you decide to open a website and until it loads. So how fast everything is downloaded and shown to you as a user. And here we have a very short recording of like page being populated with elements, and we can see how everything is coming together to be shown to the user as a complete page. And load performance is influenced by the network connection and device capabilities and the general shape of your code. So to have a short tips how you can optimize the load performance, you might want to look into reducing the size of the bundle, so how much assets, code, data you're shipping to the user, setting up the correct CDN, content delivery network, that is making sure that the latency is the smallest possible, so like your user is close to the server where the data is stored and all your assets are stored, and also minifying the content, fixing cache, so the basics that everyone should already have, but sometimes we forget. The next type of web performance is the runtime web performance. So this is about everything that is happening from the moment that the user is able to start interacting with the page, clicking, scrolling, just playing around. And the runtime performance, when it's bad, you might see it. As here we can see on the video something called junk. And the junk is happening when the browser refresh rate is not hitting the refresh rate of the device. So most devices have the refresh rate of 60 frames per second. Newer devices start rolling out that have 120 frames per second refresh rate, which I'm very happy about because I had similar talk a few years ago and I was predicting that it's going to happen, and it's happening. So I'm really glad. And what's happening here, the browser is basically overloaded with work, and it's dropping some frames. It just doesn't have enough time to create the 60 frames every second. So some of these frames are not created, dropped, and then we have the stuttering. So this is when the runtime performance problems might emerge. And as mentioned, influenced by overloading the browser with work, and to improve, you can reduce the amount of the work for the browser. For example, you might want to split your functions into smaller ones. You might want to put some things into the web worker. You might want to simplify your code. Also, you might want to look into code splitting, so the pieces of code you're shipping are smaller, browser has less to do at the beginning, and also do some optimizations for the animations, because the animations are usually where you see the junk. For example, if you're trying to animate, as mentioned in the previous talk, like adding or removing items from the page is like heavy for the website. So here, when you're, for example, also trying to animate the size of the element, removing of the element, this is when the browser might have some issues because it needs to reflow the layout. And the last type of web performance is the perceived web performance. And perceived performance is the user experience, overall feeling that we get from the website. It's really hard to say what to optimize. You just need to optimize everything. But even when everything is like, from the standpoint of code, perfect, your users still might feel that the web performance is not really as it should be, because, for example, your animation is too long and it feels just sluggish, and the user might feel that web performance is not there. So this is like very subjective thing. And before we go into tooling information, we need to differentiate between two types of data that we can get around the metrics for the web performance, and this is lab and field data. Because I feel that a lot of people are getting this wrong and saying, oh, my Lighthouse score is 100, my web performance is amazing, there's nothing I can improve. So this is the lab data. So lab data is whatever you do in a certain conditions that might not exactly represent the conditions that all your users have. So lab data, for example, as mentioned, will be something, okay, we're back, will be something that you run in your conditions on your laptop that is influenced by your laptop's capabilities, by your network, and everything. Versus field data is the information you get from your real users, how they're trying to interact with your website, and then you have some stats around this. And for me, like, my lab data is significantly different than the field data, because my users are mostly in Nigeria and Kenya, and the devices, their network, they're like completely different from my situation. So the field data is the thing that is letting me know what's not working. All right, now let's go into tooling. So there are three parts of the web performance tooling that you need to look into. And the first part is obviously the initial testing, because you need to find out what you stand on, how well your website is performing in general. If it's sluggish, or maybe it's perfect, maybe you don't need to optimize anything. You want to know. And the tools for that, first thing you want to do is to go to PageSpeed Insights. It's a fantastic tool. To use it, you input the URL you want to get tested, and it will give you a lot of results, both for mobile and for the desktop. And on top, you can see the field data, so the data from users, but it's only a part of all the data you could have, because it's only related to the users that are using Chrome and are signed into Google account. But it's still something. You get information about some of the metrics, so you can see how well you're doing, how your users are experiencing it. And then farther down, the results from the run on the Lighthouse, that's using some specific set of settings that the PageSpeed Insights is using, and it gives you a lot of information about some opportunities that you can take. And it's like a great start to see maybe, oh, maybe my caching is not working, or maybe this third-party JavaScript is like really, really big, and maybe we could talk to the marketing team if we really need to use this tool. Next one is web page test, which is used very similarly. You also input the URL, and it will give you loads and loads of data about your website. There's a lot of things that you can toggle in there. You can choose where the server should be, what type of devices you want to test. By default, I think there's like 3 runs that for non-logged in users, but if you sign up, there's more. And it also will give you a lot of opportunities, a lot of information about what you can do to start optimizing things that are there. Then there's Webpack Bundle Analyzer. If you're using Webpack, then by default, what Webpack will do, it will just like grab all the JavaScript and create one huge file that will be like few megabytes sometimes. And this tool is very visual, and it will help you with understanding which parts of your bundle are the biggest. Basically, the bigger the square, the bigger the asset. And I think it's just very useful to run this tool to have something of things that are maybe not working as they should be. For example, we found out at some point that some React icons library is producing 1.5 megabytes. No, sorry, it was more. I think this is after optimization. But like it was producing a few megabytes because every time you picked one icon from one set, it would just download the whole set and bundle it in as it was described in the documentation. And we managed to fix this, and it was like very visible from the tool. So if you're using Webpack, I highly recommend running this. In the slides, there's a link to guide how to set this up. And then Web Vitals extension, I think it's a fantastic tool. So if you have it pinned and installed in your Chrome browser, when you interact with the page, it will show you how your metrics are doing. So some of the metrics are only like the load metrics, like largest contentful pane, so it's like immediately known. But then you can, for example, start scrolling, clicking things, and you see how the interaction to next paint, for example, is changing. Interaction to next paint is like a cumulative metric, so it's about all the interactions that are happening when your users are interacting with the page. And basically, the worst interaction you have, it will be this metric most of the time. So you might have everything working really smoothly, but then there's this cookie banner that takes forever to show user any visual feedback and will just screw your metric completely. So I think this tool is like really good to find out where you're standing when it comes to the metrics. And it also has some options, and one of them, if you right-click on this tool, the console logging especially is very useful because, for example, it will log you what the largest contentful paint element is. Largest contentful paint is like the biggest element in the immediate view, how long it takes to load this. Basically, the faster the better. And you find out what the candidate for largest contentful paint is here. You have the HTML for it, and there's like some subparts for the largest contentful paint as well. For example, you have time to first bytes, so like how long it took to get the first bytes for this metric, and other very useful things. So I really recommend trying to play with this tool. So after we did initial testing and we have more or less idea what is going on and what we stand on when it comes to the performance, then it's time for some optimizations, which you can do using mostly Chrome DevTools, because I think they're like the top tier when it comes to trying to test some performance. First of all, there's a network tab, as mentioned, available in Chrome DevTools. Is great for testing load performance, so how fast like your things are loaded, are showing up to the user. And it is the most useful tool. Like honestly, if I was to use just one tool for testing performance, that would be the network tab. But the setup is the key. That's why we're gonna have a small demo later, and we're going to try to see what all these controls are doing, like how can you try to use some things in there. The next tool is the Performance tab, which is also available in Chrome DevTools. It's great for testing runtime performance, so the smoothness of the page. It is useful, but hard to read. A lot of people like try to view it, try to run the test, and then they're like, I have no idea what's going on in there, really. Like, there's a lot of things to see. Unfortunately, it's also not accessible for screen readers. I was trying to use it, and it's just not reading much. There's also alternative to use now, Performance Insights, which is an experimental tool, and I believe that these tools will become one, and probably they're testing a lot of new things, like what people are liking. So this is what the Performance tab looks like when you run it. As you can see, there's a lot of things, but hopefully during the demo, maybe some of these things will clear out and we'll see what it's about. Then there's Lighthouse, which is as well available in Chrome DevTools, and it's great for checking opportunities. So it gives you the same things that you saw in the page speed insights, but you can select what type of settings you want to have in there. And it makes it easy to see progress. So you're trying to like optimize some things, and you run Lighthouse over and over again after improving some things, and it will show you basically if you're progressing in any direction. And as well, this is the results for the Lighthouse tool. So it will give you information about the web metrics as well. And if you go down, there's opportunities. And then last but not least, the rendering tab, which is as well available in Chrome DevTools. And it's great for testing any layout issues. So it will include tools like paint flashing, layer borders, Web Vitals overlay, which is similar to the Web Vitals extension, but it is a bit different. It feels more responsive and like less intrusive, but I still prefer the extension, to be honest. And the rendering tab, it's not immediately available, but if you open the Chrome DevTools, on the right you have 3-dot menu, and if you go there, there's more tools, and you can open the rendering tab, and you basically select all these tools that are interesting to you, and it will like highlight the parts of the page that are affected. So the more highlighting, the worse it is, basically. That's what you need to remember. All right, now let's try doing some demo. Try doing, because you never know. All right, I don't want to print. Okay, I don't know why I see this like that. I see it correctly. Okay, so first thing you want to do when you're trying to do any tooling and trying out all these dev tools, you want to set up your new testing account or the new profile in the Chrome DevTools in Chrome. And this is because extensions that you have installed, they will affect your performance testing. Also, you can have different settings, like maybe some experimental tools enabled in one and not in the other. So this is why you might want to do this. So I'm going to go to my profile now, and I'm going to open the DevTools immediately. So first, we're gonna start. Let me make this a bit bigger. That's fine, isn't it? Can you see it at the back? Yeah, they show me the thumbs up. Perfect. And I'm happy that you're listening and you didn't just doze off after the lunch as well. So there's a lot of things. Let me just turn this off first. What you want to do is just go to the website that you want to test. And we're going to be doing this test using a website of an agency that's in Poland, because they had like a really nice redesign recently, very like visual website, and I found it like interesting to do the testing. So as you saw, the moment I typed in the website URL, the network tab got populated. And there's a lot of things, and it's very intimidating at first. So things you want to know. First, disable cache. You want to have this on while trying to do testing, because otherwise the cache will influence things. And what we see here, this is like a big table that basically has all the assets that are needed to load the website. And by default, they will be in the order they were downloaded. Oh, God. And... yes, and you can see waterfall here, which is also showing how the downloads were progressing. So you can see like what can influence what. Another thing not everyone knows, if you right-click on any of the columns, now my right-clicking doesn't work. Okay, it does work on this. You can add or remove some columns. By default, you don't have the priority column in there, but I found it like really useful. So they will give you the information about like what is the priority that the browser gave to the asset when it was downloading. Then things that you can see here, at the bottom we can see that it was 120 requests, 7.7 megabytes transferred. This went through the cable. I mean, the website is visual, right? But it's still loads. So it was 11.9 megabyte resources in general. So after unzipping everything, it will give you the time, how long it took, DOM content loaded, and so forth. So what we can do is, I'm going to minimize this a bit. And now, for example, we can test what will happen if I accept the cookie banner. If I accept the cookie banner. So we can see it went from 120 to 142 requests. So this is how this cookie banner tool is influencing the website. So it is quite a lot. So this is something to think about and maybe optimize. Then I'm going to scroll down the website and I can see that the number of requests is getting higher, which means that most likely there's some lazy loading happening, which is good. We did not load all the resources at first. So this is also good to know. This is how we can test this. Another thing that is really useful, if you click on the first call, so this is going to be the netguru.com. If you click any item in the table, it will give you some additional data. I personally like to go to the timing column in there, timing tab, and if you see the waiting for the server response, it is going to be your time to first byte. It's the representative of time to first byte, TTFB. And to quote Harry Roberts, if your time to first byte is good, nothing happens, but if your time to first byte is bad, then your performance is bad in general, because like all the resources most likely will also take longer to download later. So this is something that is useful in here. What we see as well is the throttling. We can do some synthetic throttling, like have some fast 3G, slow 3G, offline, very nice for testing the PWAs. But this is synthetic, so it's not going to be like real, like slow network, so you need to bear it in mind as well. We can filter. You can just put like any resource type in there or any text in there, and we just filter the list. And then below that, we have the filters for the types of the content downloaded. And I find it's really useful to always just click through it and see what is going on. So for example, I can see that if I go to, and only have fetch requests, it's going to be 19 requests, just 1 megabyte. JS as well, 1.1 megabyte, 29 requests, nice. CSS, nothing. What does it mean? It means that probably it's a CSS in JS. Images, 103, less than a megabyte. And for such a visual website, I'm surprised personally. But then if I go to media, I can see it was 5.8 megabytes. And another thing you can do is if you click on any of the column headers, you sort by this column header. So I can sort from the biggest to smallest resources. I can see that some MP4 background was 3.4 megabytes. That's a hefty amount. Probably someone didn't really think this through or test this. Another thing that we can see here, there's this cog icon specific for the network tab. And if you click this, there's some useful options, and the most useful of all is the big request rows, because it will make the rows like double the size and you have some more information. And what we can get from here, for example, we can see that the transfer over the network size is at the At the top and at the bottom, we have the resource size. So if the size of the transfer and the resource size is the same, it means that something has not been minimized. So most likely someone just put it there, they forgot to optimize the size of the file, and boom, here we are, 3.4 megabytes. One other thing we can do, we can go, again, click on this resource, go to the headers, and there's a URL. And we can see what it is, if it's worth it. Is it worth it? I don't know, could have been an image, but you know, like it's very visual, so maybe it's worth 3.4 megabytes. So these are the things that you can do in the network tab. One other thing that's like really useful, for example, I can see that there's some like Lottie illustration, JSON. Let me find something. Cookie law. If you double right click on this, you can do something that's called block request URL. So it will immediately open this tab, network request blocking, that will then just block the whole domain. And then you can refresh the website. I'm not gonna do this because of the time. And then you can see like what's the impact of the tool on your page, like how much smaller it is. You can see if maybe some assets are not really used. And this is like very useful for checking that out. You can also just add some patterns in here. It doesn't have to be through right-clicking. You can just block all JPEGs, block all fonts, and see what's going on in there. Do I still have time? Oh, I have time. Oh my God, it's so useful. I was just stressing out in here. Cool. All right, so that was the network tab, the most useful of all. Now let's go to the most threat one. You can use it in two ways. First way is you can click the left icon that says record, and then just, for example, try playing with some animation or look at some animation, and just like the shorter recording, the easier it is to work with this, because it's just going to be like a bit more readable. And the second way is you can click start profiling and reload the page, and it just like reloads the whole page, and it will show you like the moments when like maybe something was going wrong. And what I'm going to do is to actually load the profile that I had before. So you can just download it and upload it with these two icons in there. And I'm loading it because I know that the bad stuff is going to be here. And, you know, I never know if they change the other page, then. So what you want to look in there is like basically the higher the bars, the higher the activity. It means the browser had the more work. And we're looking for these places where there's like a red color, obviously. And you can scroll into this, and then it will show you like the piece of data that is relevant to this part. And the bad part about this tool is like when you try to scroll, it would just, oh fuck. It would just, you know, it would just scroll in and out of this timeline. That is like very annoying, but if you hold shift, you can scroll like a normal person. You know, so it's like the biggest piece of advice I have for you in this tool. Let me just make it smaller. So now that we scrolled into this like red part, what we want to look for is like the long tasks. So remember when I said like, okay, so the browser sometimes doesn't have time, and it's, you know, 60 frames per second, so it's to create 60 frames. So it means that one frame needs to be around 16 milliseconds for the browser to be able to have the 60 frames every second. So if you have anything that is longer, it will be highlighted that is like too long. For example, here's like 180, so that's like very long frame. And then, as mentioned, I'm holding scroll now, so you can see that there's like a long task is going to be in red, and what you see here is a flame chart. So it will show you like all the things that had to be done for this task to finish. So if you see something like that, it means that probably this task is a bit too long, and you might want to chop it into like smaller functions so that the browser has a briefer time. So if your user is trying to interact with the page and click on something, they're gonna actually see some result of this interaction. There's not gonna be like this, you click a button, nothing is happening. One last thing from the demo. So another thing that you can see here is the bottom up. And what is not default here is grouping by domain. If you group by domain, it will show you like what domains like took the longest. So if you have any like third party that is like blocking everything from happening, you'll be able to see it in there. And as mentioned, there's also this experimental performance insights tool, and invalid trace file. Never mind. So it's doing the same thing as performance tab, but it's like a bit more like looking easier to read. And on the right, you have the column with like everything that went wrong, like layout reflow, any like long tasks and everything. You can click it, and it gives you like screenshots, links, all the files or the task functions that are too slow. So it's very useful for testing things out. Okay, cool. I'm done with demo. And the last, but not least, so I mentioned that the setup is the key, and I really, really recommend this course from Harry Roberts on setting up DevTools for performance testing. The slides will be pasted later on my Twitters, but if you want, there's a promo code as well for this course, minus 20%. Harry came up with this, not me. And after the optimizations, we have the setting up for the long run. Because it doesn't matter, you did all these optimizations, everything is working the fastest possible, but then the new dev comes in, the new marketing person comes in, someone uploads like new assets, and you might be at the square one. So you want to do some performance monitoring. So there are some tools like SpeedCurve and Calibre are like great for just like seeing the trace and everything. Bundle size is great for like gatekeeping people from putting like huge assets or like just screwing the code in general very quickly. There's a link to how to set this up. It's very useful. And there's also Web Vitals.js library by Chrome team that lets you just post the metric values from your users into some tools and just find out what your real users are experiencing. In summary, remember the difference between load runtime perceived performance and the field and lab data. You want to use network tab, performance insights, rendering tools for interaction, Lighthouse or page speed for general information. And thank you. And sorry for running like 1.5 minutes over time.